So, I think we can start now. Are you ready? Okay, now we will listen to a presentation about connection between Postgres and Go. So, the first question is, does it work? Is it normal? Everything is fine. Okay, then. Can you hear me? So let's start. My name is Artemy. I work for Avito. I'm responsible for creating a service for short-term real estate rent. We work with Postgres and Go. That's why I decided to speak on this issue. Now I would like to get acquainted with you. DBA, please raise your hands. Okay, developers. So you are the people I need. Go has a set of tools that allows you to work with database. The first one is standard kit that provides this interface for working with database. This package is known as Database SQL, and its interface provides IP for opening database, for fulfilling a query, and for getting data. This IP can be used for every SQL similar database. Any of them. For working with transactions, we can use specific methods. We can start a transaction and commit it. But the object of transaction has a similar IP that a database has. That's why we can conduct similar operations. This is the first thing you will experience when you start writing code. Of course, you will go to Google and find this resource, database SQL.org. And in this resource, you can read about the things you need to have to work with Go base. You start working, everything is fine, but 10 minutes after you start writing the code, you experience problems. Why? Because it's not convenient to work with database in Go. Why? ORM is not used in Go. Secondly, every primitive from database, if we use a standard package, every column from database should be shared in Go primitives. This is the way the code looks like, and it's not convenient to write a code like this. That's why XQX package was developed. This is an extension of IP database SQL that allows us to work with Go structures directly. For example, we can read columns directly into the structure. And here's an annotations. We can understand what column we need to read data from. That's a bit more convenient. We do not need to write as much code. Apart from that, it allows us to detect placeholders. What do I mean? When we work with SQL queries in Go, every time we need to know what placeholder we will use for what specific parameter. For example, if we use MySQL, we need to put question mark. If Postgres, we need to use $mark. SQLite, we use both syntaxes, and if we use Oracle, we use name syntax. It's not convenient because we have to think about it every time. Of course, when you are experienced enough, you won't have to think about it. You will write question mark 1 or 2, but still, cognitive load is there. That's why SQL package has rebind method. This method allows you to write question mark every time, and it doesn't matter with what driver of the base you work. SQLX will implement the placeholder that you need. We considered standard package of database SQL standard IP and SQLX that is convenient to use to work with database. Apart from them, SQLX allows us to substitute question marks with specific features of a structure that should be used. For example, if you want to get a filter by specific country, we can enter country feature in the structure and SQLX will place this feature into the query. Get and select are the methods that will allow you to simplify your work when getting a lot of information from database. Get and select, these are two methods that allow you not to write too much code. You need to use them if you want to simplify your code. So, we looked at these packages, but to work with the base, we need to have drivers, we need to have something that will implement protocol for communicating with database. Go has two packages, standard one, classical one that has been standard one for a long time, libpq. Today, this is outdated, so it's better not to use it. That's why we will speak about PGX. PGX is a more contemporary driver that implements a protocol for communicating with Postgres. We will speak about it. Why? As developers say, it is faster than libpq. It supports the types of Postgres that are implemented by Postgres in non-standard SQL and allows us to work with them conveniently. It provides opportunities for login queries, and it's quite convenient to do that, and it also supports binary format of parameters provision, and it has no exceptions that are not processed, so no panics in code. libpq can dump all the instance of your application, and PGX will show you quite understandable arrow, and that's why we prefer it when we select a driver. Opportunity to set up every connection. This is an important feature, and it can work with logical replication protocol that is above Postgres 10. Now I would like to tell you about insights. This is the way the code of data scanning looks like. And when we call next method, we get network query for this data. The buffer is 4 kilobytes. And if the volume of our data is larger than 4 kilobytes, we will make several network queries. PQ and PGX have a buffer for 4 kilobytes. I thought that it could be replaced. Maybe in that case performance will be increased. It turned out that you cannot substitute this buffer on PGX, and I made an issue and the developer said that they needed metrics. He asked me why I needed that and where it will increase performance and where it will decrease it. I made a hook for the driver to support the opportunity of customization. So if you're interested in it, you can experiment and try increasing and decreasing your buffer. Apart from that, there is an interesting feature of PGX. For every query, it gets a list of object ID. For every connection establishing, why does it do it? To understand what column stores what data. PGX has a dictionary. The key issue is type and the value is object ID. And it uses the dictionary, and when necessary, it can transfer data into the necessary primitives. To form this list, for each connection establishment, it makes a query to database, even 3 such queries that see the list of object ID base. Why am I speaking about it? Because once we had such an issue. The load for database was quite high, it increased, and the pool of connections started to slow down. So when it was full, new connections were formed. In normal state, transactions for receiving such object ID data last 15 minutes, but when the base became slow and our services started trying to create new connections, we had 6.5 thousand queries per minute, and the base fell because of the load. Because of the pooler's behavior. And what could we have done to avoid this? First of all, you need to set your pool. The standard package of MS SQL has two settings that allow you to limit pool. Please use them. Do that. And apart from that, it would be good to monitor. Standard package provides stats method that will show you the snapshot about the state of your pool and the queries, and it would be good for you to monitor them to understand what is going on in your database. If for the purposes of performance you work with driver without database SQL abstraction layer, you can use PGX connection pool and get information about the current state of the pool like this. Apart from that, I already mentioned that PGX gives good opportunities for login. Actually, inside, it has logger interface that implements log method. It provides log IP that allows you to implement this logger and start receiving information about your queries, start logging your queries. Probably you won't even need to write your adapter for this interface because PG's package already includes a set of adapters for most popular Go loggers. So probably you will just need to use this adapter and start logging all the information that you consider necessary. When this fall happened, we used this method that shouldn't be used in production environment, but it helped us a lot. We know that when creating new connection, a query to the base is sent, but when we create a connection, order 1, object 1 does not change between every connection. That's why probably it would be right to cache this object ID, and we did it. We used the opportunities of the driver for configuration of every separate connection and cached object ID. So when creating a new connection, PGX did not address the base. It took data from cache and created connections without any service queries. Of course, it helped us to remove this unnecessary load and we avoid problems. But you don't need to use it in code. This is just a crutch, and please do not do that. Just limit your pool and see what happens. PG bouncer and infrastructure. If you have Postgres cluster, you have PG bouncer. If it's not Yandex, of course, but most likely you will have PG bouncer and you will have to deal with it. So, how do we fight PG bouncer? First of all, we have hardware servers that have Postgres cluster servers. On these hardware machines, we have bouncers. These bouncers is a server installed on hardware machine. Our servers work in Kubernetes. Every service deploys pods, and 3 pods are deployed by Kubernetes, and when a pod is deployed, we create a container known as migrator. This container is enabled before pod starts functioning. Migrator connects server bouncer. It finishes migration, and after it finished successfully, we launch our services. Within the framework of our pod, we have server, HTTP server that processes customers' queries, and this server connects customer's bouncer. Customer's bouncer is the bouncer that is in pod next to our server, and when this bouncer was established, it connects the server bouncer, the bouncer on hardware server. Why is it like this? Some time ago, our main stack was PHP, and PHP does not have a connection pooler inside. That's why we had to use client's PG bouncer to limit PHP in consuming connections Unless we do it, PHP can consume all connections of server bouncer and all neighbors would suffer. Now if we write on Go, Go has puller connector and maybe we do not need this PG bouncer anymore. So in the relevant configuration we do not really need to use this bouncer. I would like to tell you about pooling modes. Bouncer can work in session pooling mode when for every session you receive a connection and it is provided to you till the end of the session. Transaction pool and connection is given for one transaction. Transaction finished and connection is taken from your statement pool, and actually it wasn't necessary to use it and we don't need it now. Well, actually you can read about the features that can be used for various types of poolings. You can follow this link and we select transaction pooling. Why? We want to consume connection efficiently, but here there are some subtleties related to prepared statements. What happens when we work with prepared statements? At some point of time we generate a query in a specific transaction, a query for preparing, and we receive statement ID. After that, in any other transaction we use this statement ID so that in the prepared query we would transfer parameters and fulfill this query. So it works. But if you use PG bouncer, these two transactions will be present in different connections. If two transactions are present in different connections, then statement ID within two connections would not exist. Statement ID within the framework of connection 4 would not exist in connection 5. So it will be an error when PG bouncer and press statement is used. How does it work in Go and why is it a problem? When you write a code that can be found in documentation inside itself, it generates a prepared statement. So you call this code and inside there are two statements. The first one is for preparing and the second one is for execution of prepared query. I said that we used PHP stack before. Why did it work? How did it work? It was quite simple. There were no prepared statements. We did them at the side of our customer. And how can we use it now? In Go, you can do it in several ways. The first one, we will not work with connectors in PG bouncer. We will select section pooling, but it's not efficient because of low utilization of connection. Or we can prepare queries at customer side. That is normal, but potentially we can have SQL injection and it's not convenient because a developer has to write more code. Okay, we can wrap it in transaction. I said that in two different transactions we have two different connections, and if we work in one transaction we will have one connection only, and prepared statement will exist in the whole duration of transaction. It will work, but you have to write a lot of code, and apart from that we will have to generate a lot of network queries. It's not efficient. That's why we select the option that can be called as parameters binary representation. Postgres has a protocol of parameters binary representation. Actually, it is not documented well enough, and the documents say that it's not recommended to be used. And you can learn about this protocol only in the source code, but PGX implements this protocol and allows you to work with this binary protocol. What does it do? Actually, when you send SQL query, driver does not assemble a line, it assembles a binary query. SQL works as a common text, but your parameters will be in binary form. It allows us, first of all, not to prepare a query in advance, and it allows us to get rid from SQL injection. This feature, this protocol, is used in PGX driver with the following tuning.
After you run it, everything begins to work without any patch or code. It's very convenient for the developers, and you don't need to write anything, you don't need to think about it. It only works. It has very high performance. You don't need any. You don't need to have any additional queries for transaction for preparation. In a standard GOG, there are 20 queries, and this is ineffective. And in skill injections, we don't need to be afraid of skill injections. Okay, now we're ready to work with Postgres using Go. Perhaps you were ready, or you will be ready, but it turned out that we are not ready, because in our infrastructure we used PGBouncer version 1.7, and it turned out to be a significant problem, because PGBouncer versions less than 1.8, when a client cancels the query, it says that connect is ready to be used. That means PGBouncer puts connection into the pool and lays information about the readiness of the connection. Our driver starts to execute the query, it receives connection and waits for the data, and then it has ready for query, and it falls. There is a mistake. There is an error. This is the best case. In the worst case, we receive the data that we don't want it to receive. Why it is a problem in Go? Because inside of our procedure, we have a mechanism of context mechanism for control of programs execution. You need to use this. What is this? When you develop a function in a separate flow, you may want to end it, and you give context to it, and context is closed together with the function. And here, our realization of the driver supports clients' cancellation of the query. That means when you cancel the query, you cancel also the pool and the ready for query, and the driver reads everything and everything falls. So what did we do against this? We just redefined the contexts, and we told that our context will never be executed. If earlier user could cancel it in browser, now if the user makes a query, it will wait until it is executed. It's not the best case, but then we had no problems with PGBouncer. At some moment they could fix PGBouncer 1.8, but when it was topical for us, we could download PGBouncer 1.9, so we got rid of the context, and we have a great latency scheme graph. The latency fell dramatically, and this is due to the fact that many queries are cancelled, and therefore I can say that Postgres is a great instrument and Go is also better, and together they are enormously great. Please use your database, please use Go. Thank you, I hope it was interesting. Thank you very much for your presentation. Do we have any questions? Yes, we have some questions here. Thank you very much. Have you seen how SN protocol is realized in libcool and extended protocol in PGX? Is it binary? No, there is simple and extend protocol. And I'm interested in extend protocol. So now, in PGX, I've seen how this protocol is realized, but for libq, I did not pay attention to this, because libq is not actual for us. We don't use it anymore. But as far as I know, when you use prefer simple protocol, it make cleaning of parameters on the client side and sends it by simple protocol. It could be used by libpq. Yes, we also use this by in libpq, but for now we will not see it in libpq because the code base is old there, because libq is not practically the same. It can do this. Thank you very much. Did you have Did you use in Go multi-reverse reversing of parallel different formats and bending of users variables and return of users procedures? In case when we work with users data, PGX applies the domain types, and to realize this, PGX wants to get object ID. I've seen scalar types there and users types also, because this query is not a good one. It reads through the whole table, I think, less than 10,000 object IDs, and then it mocks the custom type. If we not use custom type, perhaps we don't need this object ID, but we want to check this. So let's not look for object IDs. Let's use hard code, because they are in hard code of Postgres. So, and we could make a hard code in driver. What about multi-record sets that are returned from Postgres? Postgres can return several of them. In Go, when you need to make this reverse, we just made a JSON reverse, and we make it very simple here. We did not look for additional ways here, but if you mean that there are many nodes inside, no, not nodes, not entries, but there are different types of entries, like users table, customers table, orders table, and so on. But in this case, it doesn't play a role for us. It's very important for us what is the row and what is the type that we are looking for. Yes, thank you very much. It's very interesting. As I understand, object identifier UID is a global thing. Yes, and as I understand, these libraries are actively using them to get metadata. Yes. So my question is, they are 4-byte whole, and they cannot guarantee, they cannot prove to be unique ones, and they don't provide a warranty, and they are not used with some versions. To have your table with UID, you need to write down that you are using UIDs. No, this is not the case. Yes, of course, you are saying that if you write down in table that it uses UID, it will use UID. No, I was just speaking about unique identifiers in Postgres. They do not relate to Postgres directly. So it's just the common feature. It's just for you to understand what is the row, and user types do not play here role. So that means it doesn't use any table UIDs. Yes, it uses only scalars. It's just for the understanding. You can also avoid the use of this. Perhaps it will be more effective. Yes. Yeah, I have a rather simple question. Thank you very much. The topic is very interesting. But my experience shows, imagine that we define some variables that are defined. When we retrieve them back from SQL after the query, life is a situation, instead of int, we receive null. That means I need to put it into SQL. Perhaps there is something, there is an easy way for this, that we could get back with the data of a certain type into the SQL. So the null objects, the packages by SQL, are their own marshaller that gets bytes from Postgres and creates type depending on the type. So this is the basic approach to this type of data. You could use coalesce if you want to receive null. So actually it stays the same. Yes, thank you. Yes, so we have one last question. Thank you very much for your presentation. May we use specific functions of Postgres like copies from stdin or other similar things with use of PGX and the standard SQL library? Yes, you can. Of course, standard library of SQL provides you with interface. It doesn't realize protocol, it realizes PGX. You can use copy, and by the way, the copies are not giving back some data, and there is also one patch that is called issue, and we've patched to realize this. So that means it's half stable for now. Well, yes, it's stable. People are using this, but if you need something that is not realized, you may realize this, of course. Then, but if you paste so much, then you will need to take it out of the base. But still, you will have your own copy. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation.